Hey guys, Matt with Shamrock Swims in New Orleans, Louisiana. Today we're showing you how to open and clean the cartridge filter on your swimming pool. If you've got a sand or a DE filter, this doesn't apply to you. Alright, unit we're working on today is a Pentair brand cartridge filter. These are incredibly popular. Top half, bottom half, we need to remove the top half of this thing, and it's held on by this big band clamp in the middle. Band clamp's got a big nut on it. On the Pentairs, it's 7/8. I want to try and avoid using any kind of slip joint pliers because this nut is brass and it will destroy that nut and make this thing very unsafe to operate, not to mention just ugly and unprofessional. So, get a ratchet. I've already got this one started. We want to loosen this nut up. There's going to be 4 little pieces with this assembly. There's going to be a nut, 2 washers, and a spring. We want to kind of keep an eye on all those parts and make sure we don't just keep track of it, but make sure we remember what order they came apart in. I've got my pump off. Only do this when the pump's off and cannot turn back on. Just in case we get distracted and walk away from this thing, we want to make sure the pump does not come on while this filter's apart or while we're working on it. Could be incredibly dangerous. So, go ahead and get my nut apart. Go ahead and take this band clamp off. Set it on the ground around the filter. The easiest way to screw up this whole simple operation is to take a hammer and a screwdriver and try and separate this top and bottom half because it is just stuck. Well, it's stuck because there's a solid column of water in here. We need to relieve the pressure of that water. This whole thing's under suction, and that column of water is sucking the 2 halves of this filter together. To do that, simply open up the air bleeder on top. You'll hear it sucking water. All that water is draining down to the bottom, and eventually this thing will be nice and loose and can just be gracefully pulled apart without beating the hell out of it. Not about it. Go ahead and pull it apart. Alright, we're just doing some routine maintenance here. So this one isn't especially dirty. Most times what you're going to find here is either a lot of debris or a lot of calcium from chlorine. You go ahead and pull this top assembly off of here. What we're going to do is rock this back and forth while we're working our fingers underneath it. Alright. Next step, we want to go ahead and get these guys hosed off. Alright guys, before we even spend our time cleaning this, we really want to evaluate this cartridge and the other 3 cartridges in there and see if they are still usable. Lifespan, if you've taken care of these, is going to be 5 to 7 years. You can even push that to 10 years if you really are on top of it and not a lot goes in there. I've got two criteria for these. Posture. I've got terrible posture. This filter does not. This filter's got good posture. When they get old, they slump over because they are just saturated with crap and just full of stuff, and they can no longer stand up straight. Second thing I look for is how crisp this is. As I run my thumb across this is making a wonderful little sound. When they are just old and saggy and dying, this will just feel dull. And as you're doing this, it's not making any kind of sound. This stuff, it's all pretty self-explanatory. From here, we're just going to hose this thing down. If your garden hose was ever as seen on TV, it will not work for this application. We need a regular garden hose. What I mean by that is the collapsible type garden hoses everybody keeps in their flower pots now that are absolutely terrible. Those things don't put out enough pressure to be able to clean these. Same with the little coiled or curly-cued garden hoses. Those work maybe even worse. We want to use a point A to point B rubber garden hose, something normal for this. We also don't want to use one of those multi-point sprayer attachments. We want to use just a nice brass pinpoint. We're trying to get as much concentrated water onto this thing as possible. And from here, we really can't screw this up. We don't want to pressure wash this thing. They really just cannot take that abuse unless you've got a really super low power electric one. I would recommend just garden hose. As we're cleaning this, we're just going to work top to bottom. You're going to see a slight change in color in this. You're going to see all the junk come out of the bottom of this in a nice muddy river. When that muddy river turns a little bit clear, and we have seen some sort of color change in this one, we're going to know these are clean. It's absolutely impossible to get these 100% clean. We want to get them good enough for service for the next season, which is the best anybody can do with these cartridge filters. Get them hosed down, get them clean. They're going to be good for the next 6 months or so, depending on the debris and bathe load in our swimming pool. So go ahead and get started hosing these down. we got our 4 cartridges clean. We are ready to go ahead and reassemble this thing. The O-ring on this filter looks to be in so-so shape. Typically, if we see that it's stretched out, we want to replace it because it's going to give us trouble. By stretch out, I mean it is not fitting in there very well. It is bigger than the channel it's supposed to sit in. Alright, we've got our 4 cartridges back in. Our dually dad on top. And these 4 cartridges are each sitting in a little cup in the bottom of the filter. So it is kind of self-explanatory where they go. Alright, O-ring's still in place. Let's go ahead and put the top of the filter back on. Alright guys, this fiberglass filter has gotten a little bit older, and the fiberglass is quickly degrading from the sun. The last thing I want to do is touch this with anything but my hands. I shouldn't even be doing that much because it will make me itchy like you would not believe. I can feel that that thing has seated all the way around, meaning one side's not up more than the other. It's all down pretty well the same amount. For this part you might need a second pair of hands. This could drive a lot of people batty. I'm used to doing this, so I usually get a foot involved, maybe a knee, third hand, whatever I have. But we want to get our bang clamp on there. Trying to fish the threaded rod through the other end. Now I want to get our nut and bolt assembly. Washer, small hole. Spring. Followed by the barrel nut with the washer with the large hole. I want to get this just started by hand just so I can get myself in a more comfortable position here. Alright, so this filter doesn't exactly, like most of them, doesn't exactly have torque specs. All it's asking is for this spring assembly to not have any space in between these coils. So we're going to go ahead and start cranking down on this. At the very least, we will see the threaded portion of all this disappear. I'm going to take my trusty ratchet, and we need a hammer. Soft rubber ball would probably be better. I grabbed a hammer. You're going to start with the ratchet, and you'll see all the space in these coils disappear. Once again, that's a 7/8 for the Pentares. If you're working on one of the JNDCL filters, those are going to be a 9/16, and I believe that will go the same for a Hayward, unless it has the big plastic knob on it. Alright, so I've tied it down, and the space in this coils has almost disappeared, but wait. Now, it's almost hanging tight again. So we're going to do this until we feel it's tight enough. We are going to cinch this thing down, watch that space in this coils disappear, then bang it onto the clamp softly with our hammer, and you'll watch this clamp assembly this bang clamp assembly actually suck into the filter. It'll actually seat itself, as opposed to riding outside of where it's supposed to be. And I feel pretty good about that. Alright. Anything can and will happen. That being said, I don't want to stand anywhere near this thing when the pump fires up. I could have misaligned something, there could be a broken part that I missed, any number of things could have happened. But at the end of the day, I've got a filter that could come flying apart, a metal bang clamp that could fly apart and bang me in the head. So I want to give it a little bit of room. Once I feel kind of comfortable with it, I'm going to open up the air bleeder, leave all the air out of there, get the system started again. Alright guys, just a couple more things before we go. Let's pick up our tools. This is my #1 favorite place to lose ratchets. I've come back to filters 6 months or a year later, found them sitting there, rusted in place. So I'm going to pick up my tools. But I want to talk about it real quick. How do we know when it's time to actually pull this apart and clean it? Well, we just cleaned it, so now we know. It sounds a little bit backwards, but bear with me. We have a 100% clean filter right now. we can look at our pressure gauge on top. Pressure is reading about 12 pounds. Because we have this clean, we now have a starting point. It's running at 12 pounds. We're going to call that our clean pressure. A lot of them even have this neat little bezel on top. Clean pressure. When the pressure on that gauge that works rises 5 to 10 pounds, it's time to clean the filters. I have seen it once every year. I've seen it once every 2 months. How often it needs to be done depends greatly on your swimming pool, your backyard, your kids, your dogs, 10 million other things. There's no way of knowing. But as a general rule of thumb, you could say anywhere from quarterly to annually, it needs to be cleaned. Running 12 pounds, that's also something that's not specific to a swimming pool, but that is about an average number. I see most of these things running 10 to 20 pounds. So, once again, thanks for stopping by, guys. This is Matt with Shamrock Swims in New Orleans, wishing you all well.